I heard the news that Charlie Kirk's wife, Megan Kirk, has forgiven the person who killed her husband.
I forgive him.
That's beautiful. Truly, forgiveness is one of the deepest acts of humanity. But let me ask you this, would the reaction be the same if the killer had been black, or Muslim, or Chinese? Because in America, forgiveness and blame are never applied evenly. From Tulsa to Rosewood, from 9/11s to modern mass shootings, history shows us something chilling. When a white person commits violence, they often receive mercy, explanations, and second chances. But when someone of color does the same, even a single person, it becomes a pretext to brand an entire community as dangerous, criminal, or un-American. This is what I want to explore with you today, the truth behind collective punishment, the double standards of justice, and how voices like Charlie Kirk thrive. If you value truth and justice, consider subscribing now, because what I'm about to share has been buried, ignored, or distorted for too long. The story of racial double standards in America begins as early as the nation itself. In the 1600s, black men and women were first brought from Africa to the colonies, not as immigrants, but as slaves. For over 2 centuries, laws and social codes were designed to keep them in chains. Even after emancipation in 1865, Jim Crow laws carried forward the idea that black lives were worth less than white lives. In the Reconstruction era, white vigilantes lynched thousands of black men, often without trial. Newspapers called these lynchings justice, presenting mob violence as acceptable because the victim was black. In 1892 alone, there were 161 documented lynchings, according to the NAACP, and most victims were African American men accused of crimes without evidence. The justice system reinforced this bias. A black man accused of assaulting a white woman could be killed without trial, but a white man guilty of rape or murder often escaped with minimal punishment, and the legacy lingers. Even in modern times, FBI crime statistics are routinely weaponized by commentators like Charlie Kirk. He claims, blacks commit more crimes.
Black people are only 13% of the population, yet they commit 55% of the murders.
But here's the truth. Statistics reflect policing, not innate criminality. For example, studies by the Sentencing Project reveal that black drivers are stopped at far higher rates than white drivers, even though contraband is found more often on white drivers. Similarly, when crack cocaine was associated with black communities in the 1980s, the punishment was 100 times harsher than powder cocaine, more common among whites. The law wasn't neutral, it was designed to criminalize blackness itself. This is the starting point. America has always applied law and order differently, based on skin color. In 1921, Greenwood District was known as Black Wall Street. It was one of the wealthiest black communities in America. Doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, and educators thrived there. But it all ended with one allegation. On May 31, 1921, a 19-year-old black man named Dick Rowland was accused of assaulting a white woman in an elevator. The story was unproven. Historians now believe the incident was likely an accident, or even fabricated, but white mobs used it as a pretext. What followed was one of the deadliest acts of racial violence in U.S. history. White rioters, many deputized and armed by local police, stormed Greenwood. They looted, burned, and murdered. Eyewitnesses described airplanes dropping incendiaries on homes. The Tulsa Tribune ran headlines calling for lynching. By the time it was over, 35 square blocks were destroyed, over 1,200 homes burned, and an estimated 300 black residents killed. Survivors were rounded up into internment camps, not the rioters. No white person was ever charged for the massacre. The victims were blamed, and their insurance claims denied. For decades, Tulsa was erased from history books, hidden to protect white reputations. One survivor, Viola Fletcher, who was just 7 years old at the time, testified before Congress in 2021. At the age of 107, I still see black men being shot, black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke. I still see fire. If a single black man's alleged crime could lead to the destruction of an entire community, what does that tell us about the imbalance of blame? Just 2 years later, another black town was wiped off the map, Rosewood, Florida. On January 1, 1923, a white woman named Fannie Taylor claimed she had been assaulted by a black man. Once again, evidence was absent. Historians later revealed she may have been covering up abuse from her white lover, but truth didn't matter. White mobs descended on Rosewood. Over the course of a week, black residents were hunted, their homes torched, their churches destroyed. Eyewitnesses recalled hiding in swamps to escape lynching. The entire town was abandoned. Survivors fled, never to return. One resident, Arnett Doctor, later said, "Rosewood was destroyed because of a lie. We lost everything, our homes, our businesses, our dignity." Both Tulsa and Rosewood reveal a chilling pattern. White violence against black communities was collective, systemic, and excused. But a single black individual's alleged crime, often fabricated, was enough to justify mass destruction. Fast forward to the 21st century, and the pattern repeats. On September 11, 2001, America was attacked by terrorists who claimed to act in the name of Islam. Nearly 3,000 innocent lives were lost, but in the aftermath, millions of Muslims, along with Sikhs, Arabs, and South Asians, were scapegoated for the crimes of a few. The FBI recorded a 1,600% increase in anti-Muslim hate crimes in 2001, from 28 cases the year before to 481 cases in a single year. Sikh men, wearing turbans, were mistaken for Muslims and killed. Mosques were vandalized. Families were harassed at airports, workplaces, and schools. Government policies fueled the paranoia. The Patriot Act enabled mass surveillance of Muslim communities. The NYPD conducted secret spying operations on mosques, coffee shops, and student groups. Innocent people were treated as suspects solely because of faith or skin color. Meanwhile, when white men carried out mass shootings, Columbine in 1999, Sandy Hook in 2012, Las Vegas in 2017, their race was never a headline. Instead, they were described as troubled loners or mentally ill. The message was clear: terrorism has a race, crime has a color, and mercy has a skin tone. Enter Charlie Kirk. Kirk is a conservative commentator known for his group Turning Point USA. He regularly claims that black Americans commit more crimes, that immigration threatens American values, and that Muslims don't deserve sympathy. During Israel's assault on Gaza, he publicly stated he had no sympathy for Palestinian victims.
It's all about empathy and sympathy. I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage, but
Yet, for all his words, not a single Muslim, black, or immigrant has harmed him. Despite his constant demonization, he has lived safely protected, ironically, by the very communities he demonizes. This is the double standard of hate speech. White supremacists can speak freely, profit, and gain platforms, but when minorities raise their voices, they are silenced, discredited, or criminalized. The difference in how America reacts to white perpetrators versus people of color is stark. In 2015, Dylan Roof walked into Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, and murdered 9 black worshipers during Bible study. The response from many in the black community was forgiveness. Family members of the victims stood in court and told Roof, "I forgive you."
Ever again. I will never be able to hold her again. But I forgive you.
Contrast this with how black suspects are treated. Unarmed men like Michael Brown, Eric Garner, and George Floyd were killed on sight. No trials, no second chances. Columbine shooters were remembered as victims of bullying. Las Vegas shooter was mysterious. Sandy Hook shooter was mentally disturbed. But when the perpetrator is black, Muslim, or Latino, the narrative shifts instantly to criminality and collective blame. But history also teaches us about resilience. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in his letter from Birmingham jail, wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." He was jailed, beaten, and ultimately assassinated for demanding equality. Malcolm X warned that white supremacy was not just in the South, but everywhere, even hidden in the so-called liberal North. Muhammad Ali refused to fight in Vietnam, declaring, "No Viet Cong ever called me racial slur." His resistance cost him his title, but made him a symbol of truth. In 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, millions marched worldwide under the banner of Black Lives Matter. It was one of the largest protest movements in history, proof that the fight for justice continues. And now, we return to where we started. Erika Kirk forgave the killer of her husband, a powerful act. But we must ask again, if the killer had been black, Muslim, or Chinese, would the nation react the same way? The truth is undeniable. Racism is not a relic of the past. It is alive, it is systemic, and it is dangerous. So, as we close, I leave you with a question. Will America ever learn to hold individuals accountable without condemning entire communities? Or will we keep repeating this cycle of hate, violence, and unequal mercy? If you believe in truth, in equality, and in breaking these cycles, then join us, subscribe, share, and keep questioning, because silence is the soil where hate grows.